The day Chloe's mother asked to see me, I was busy mapping out which new farm-to-table spot I'd take Chloe to that weekend. The meeting was at the Pinnacle, the rotating restaurant on top of the tallest building in the city. She wore a bespoke silk dress, a string of flawless jade beads coiled around her wrist. The way she looked at me was the way an appraiser looks at a piece of furniture before assigning it a price. She didn't waste time with small talk. A black credit card slid across the table. $5 million, she said, her voice a flat, emotionless line. Leave Chloe. Disappear from her life forever. She probably expected me to be shocked, angry, or maybe put up a fake fight before pocketing the card. After all, to people like her, I was just Ethan Miller, an orphan who'd scraped through college on scholarships and was now a nobody at some tiny downtown firm. I'd probably never even seen a number with that many zeros. $5 million. It was more than I could make in 2 lifetimes of honest work. I looked at the card. 1 second. 2. Then I slipped it into my pocket. Thank you, ma'am, I said. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed her face. Pure, undiluted contempt. She thought I couldn't even be bothered to pretend. She had no idea that for the 3 years Chloe and I had been together, this was the only way she'd ever looked at me. In her world, I didn't belong. My existence was a blemish on her perfect family portrait. She also had no idea that Ethelred Dynamics, Chloe's company, had nearly been crushed last month by a European patent blockade. It was me, working through the night under the alias Nix, who wrote a core algorithm that bypassed the entire blockade, pulling her company back from the brink of collapse. I charged a symbolic licensing fee of $1. And 6 months before that, when their biggest competitor tried to poach me, they'd offered an 8-figure salary plus founder's equity. I turned them down, because back then, Chloe would wrap her arms around me from behind while I was coding late at night, burying her face in my back and whispering, "Ethan, you smell like home." But now, that feeling of home had just been bought out by her mother for $5 million. I stood up, gave her a slight nod, and turned to leave. Her voice, dripping with condescending advice, stopped me. "You're a smart boy. You know what to do. That money is enough for you to live like a king in any other city. Don't come back to New York. And don't let Chloe find you." I didn't look back. "You don't know me very well, ma'am," I said. "I've never been that ambitious." And then I walked out. The sunlight outside the hotel was blinding. I hailed a cab, went straight to the bank, and transferred the full amount to my personal account. Then I bought a train ticket back home. My phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. "Ethan, what the hell? My mother said you took the money and just walked out? Is this how much you love me?" It was followed by a flood of question marks. I turned the phone off and leaned my head against the cool glass of the train window, watching the city skyline recede. The skyscrapers, the rivers of traffic, the entire world I once thought I had to conquer was all shrinking into the distance. I was tired. This wasn't an act. For 3 years, I'd been spinning like a top, trying to be worthy of Chloe, trying to earn a single glance of approval from her mother. By day, I was an office drone. By night, the mysterious Nix of the investment world. I thought if I just worked hard enough, I could close the gap between our worlds. I get it now. Some gaps can't be filled with hard work. So I'm done playing. Going home sounds good. Home is a place called Havenwood. It's beautiful, all rolling hills and clear streams, but it's also dirt poor. I dragged my suitcase down the dirt road, the air thick with the smell of wet earth and freshly cut grass. The locals who saw me were surprised. "Ethan? Thought you were making a fortune in the city. What brings you back? Kid like you should be putting down roots out there. No future here." I just smiled and waved, telling them I got tired of the city and needed a break. When my grandma saw me, her eyes went red. She grabbed my hands, patting me from my arms to my shoulders, murmuring, "Too thin, you're too thin." Our old house was a small, crumbling brick and timber thing. I told her, "Grandma, let's tear this place down and build a new one." She looked horrified. "Don't be silly. Do you know how much that would cost?" I didn't try to explain. The next day, a fleet of construction vehicles rumbled into the village. I hired the best architectural firm and building crew I could find. We knocked down the old house, and on its original foundation, we started building a 3-story modern farmhouse with a wraparound porch. My only request to the architect was for a massive living room, with one entire wall dedicated to a screen. My grandma's eyesight is failing, but she loves her old movies. I wanted to make sure she could see every detail. The village was buzzing. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind. Some whispered I'd gotten into trouble in the city and was on the run. Others figured I'd won the lottery. The old guys who played checkers at the picnic table by the general store became the town's intelligence hub. So, Hemlock, one would say to the other, where do you reckon the Miller kid got that kind of cash? Beats me. But ain't fake money. You hear those excavators? Think of the gas they're burning through every day. I spent my days in a folding chair on the edge of the construction site, watching the house take shape. Every once in a while, I'd take out my phone and turn it on. Dozens of unread messages would immediately flood the screen, all from Chloe. They started with rage, then moved to disappointed accusations, then to calm, analytical inquiries, and finally, they softened into a kind of pleading confusion. Ethan, where are you? Can we please just talk? If you needed money, you could have asked me. Why would you do it like this? Are you in some kind of trouble? Just tell me. I'd read them, my heart a placid lake. I sent a single reply. I'm home. I'm good. Don't worry about me. Then I'd switch the phone off and toss it aside. The house went up fast. 2 months later, a beautiful white villa stood in stark contrast to the rest of the village. The yard was landscaped with fresh sod and flower beds. Inside, an enormous 180-inch micro-LED display covered the living room wall, connected to a theater-grade sound system. The day I brought my grandma into the finished house, she just stood there, lost. She touched the smooth hardwood floors, the soft leather of the couch, and finally pointed a trembling finger at the giant screen. Is this a movie theater? I smiled and put the remote in her hand. Grandma, from now on, it's your private movie theater. I showed her how to use it, how to stream all her favorite black and white classics and old Broadway shows. Seeing her there, wearing her reading glasses, her face lit by the screen with a childlike grin, I knew the $5 million was the best money I'd ever spent. As for Chloe's mother, she probably never dreamed that the money she used to humiliate me would end up building a private cinema for my grandma in the middle of nowhere. My new life settled into a rhythm. It was simple. Morning walks with Grandma, followed by a few games of checkers with Old Man Hemlock and his crew. Afternoons were for reading on the porch with a glass of iced tea. Evenings were for movie nights with Grandma. I paid to have the main road into the village paved and installed solar-powered streetlights. The local elementary school needed computers, so I donated a fully equipped computer lab. I also funded an organic co-op farm, creating jobs to bring some of the younger folks back to town. I wasn't trying to be some kind of savior. It just felt like the money sitting in a bank was a meaningless number. This way, it meant something. The way the villagers looked at me changed. I went from city slicker failure to Mr. Miller, our benefactor. Even Old Man Hemlock stopped trying to cheat at checkers as much. One afternoon, as Hemlock and I were locked in a tense endgame, my phone started buzzing. It was a cheap burner phone with a long battery life and an obnoxious ringtone. Hemlock shot me a sideways glance. Phone's ringing. This move doesn't count. I'm taking it back. I sighed and picked it up. An unknown number. I answered. A familiar, ice-cold voice came through the line. Well, Ethan, you've really made something of yourself. I was surprised she'd found my new number. I'm doing all right, I said, my eyes still on the checkerboard. At least I don't have to answer to anyone. Silence on her end for a few seconds. I heard you built a mansion, paved a road, and donated a school, she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. How does it feel, buying a good name for yourself with my mother's money? Feels pretty good, I said, moving a piece. King me, Hemlock. The old man grunted, then illegally slid his own piece 1 square over. Chloe obviously heard the exchange, because her breathing quickened. Ethan, what is your game? Are you trying to get back at me, or am I mother? I don't have a game, I said. Chloe, I just want to live a quiet life. It's you, or all of you, who won't let me go. A quiet life? You call this a quiet life? Blowing $5 million in some backwoods town to play the local hero? Is this really your life's ambition? Her voice rose, thick with disappointment. I laughed. What's the alternative? Your life? Back-to-back meetings until midnight, fighting over a single percentage point of profit, forcing a smile while you have dinner with some bloated venture capitalist? That's not my ambition, Chloe. She was speechless. I've got to go, I said, unwilling to argue anymore. We were living on different planets now. Ethan, she yelled suddenly. Don't hang up. I'm on my way to your town. My hand, holding a checker, froze mid-air. What for? I asked. To see how Mr. Philanthropist is living his quiet life on our dime, she said, her voice turning cold again. I sighed. Text me when you get to the edge of town. I'll send you a pin. Drive safe. I hung up and tossed the phone onto the grass. Hemlock leaned in. Who was that? Sounded like a woman, and she didn't sound happy. Just an old colleague, I mumbled. He shook his head. You young people, always so dramatic. Come on, let's finish. Your last move didn't count. I played out the rest of the game, my mind elsewhere. Back at the house, Grandma was in the garden, watering her pepper plants. She saw me and beamed. Ethan, look at these jalapenos. Aren't they beautiful? Looking at her smile, the knot of irritation in my chest slowly loosened. Just before dusk, a crimson Porsche tore through the village's quiet, a blade of red against the green hills. It pulled up in front of my house. The door opened, and Chloe stepped out. She wore a tailored white pantsuit and 4-inch heels, her hair pulled back in a severe, elegant bun. She stared at the modern villa, at the jarring contrast it made with the small, weathered farmhouses around it. Her expression a mix of emotions I couldn't read. Heads poked out of windows all around us. This was better than television. I walked out of the yard and opened the gate. You made it, I said, my tone even. She looked at me, taking in my plain t-shirt, loose linen pants, and canvas slip-ons. I was a world away from the man in bespoke suits who had stood by her side, trying so desperately to play the part. A flicker of confusion crossed her eyes. Ethan, whatever she was going to say dissolved into a cold smirk. Looks like you're doing very well for yourself. She stepped into the yard, her heels sinking unsteadily into the soft grass. Her gaze swept over the house like an X-ray, dissecting every detail. Nice design. Who was the firm? Must have cost a fortune. Her words were barbed. It was reasonable, I replied. Reasonable. She laughed as if I'd told the funniest joke in the world. Ethan, do you have any idea what the audiovisual system in your living room alone costs? Most people work their entire lives and can't afford that. And you call it reasonable? I didn't say anything. The system was a prototype from one of my own companies. To me, it was just the cost of parts. Grandma heard the voices and came out of the house. She saw Chloe, froze for a second, then broke into a warm smile. Oh my, Chloe, is that you? Come in, dear, come in. Grandma had met Chloe once when she'd come back with me for Thanksgiving one year. At the sight of my grandma, the ice on Chloe's face thawed a little. She managed a slightly awkward, "Hi, Grandma." "Come on in, child," Grandma said, taking her hand. "Let me get you some tea. This boy of mine never tells me when company is coming." When Chloe stepped inside and saw the wall-to-wall screen, she stopped dead. She knew technology better than I did. She knew what that screen represented. This wasn't something you could just buy, no matter how much money you had. This was bleeding edge. Ethan, she turned to me, unable to hide the shock in her eyes. Is that Stellaron's new display tech? I thought it was still in the R&D phase. Stellaron Labs was another company I secretly controlled, specializing in next-generation display technology. No one knew. I shrugged. Guess I got lucky and bought a beta version. It was a terrible lie. Chloe wasn't an idiot. She stared at me, her eyes boring into mine as if trying to see through to the truth. She didn't believe me. She thought I was hiding something, that there was some backroom deal she didn't know about. That was her, always trying to dissect everything with the cold logic of a business deal. It never occurred to her that the truth was ridiculously simple. I didn't buy it from the company. I was the company. Grandma made dinner. Simple country fare, nothing fancy, but it tasted like home. The mood at the table was tense. Grandma kept piling food onto Chloe's plate. Chloe ate slowly, silently. After dinner, Grandma went next door to play cards with a neighbor. The living room fell silent, leaving just me and Chloe. She was the first to speak. "Ethan, we need to talk." "About what?" "About us," she said, her eyes searching mine, carrying a weariness I had never seen before. "I know what my mother did was horrible. I apologize on her behalf. But you can't punish yourself like this." I almost laughed. Punish myself? She thought this was self-punishment. "I'm happy here," I said. "Happy? What is happy?" She stood up and began pacing, a lioness trapped in a cage. "Giving up your career, throwing away your future, hiding out in this forgotten village, and using a little bit of money to create a fantasy of wealth. Is that what you call happy? Chloe, I said calmly, did you ever stop to think that what you call a career and a future might not be what I want? Then what do you want? She pressed. I want something you can't give me. How do you know I can't give it to you if you won't even tell me what it is? She demanded, her voice rising with urgency. Just then, a deep, rhythmic thumping sound started, a low roar that grew steadily louder, cutting through the night's tranquility. The sound intensified, accompanied by a powerful downdraft that sent the leaves in the yard skittering across the lawn. Chloe's face changed. She walked to the window. I stood up too. Hovering in the night sky was a sleek, black helicopter. It was slowly descending, preparing to land in the open field next to our house. Every dog in the village started barking. In the glare of its landing lights, I could see my neighbors peering out from their homes. The helicopter's side door slid open. A man in a black suit and sunglasses jumped out. He was carrying a silver, hardshell briefcase and moved towards our front door with brisk, efficient strides. Chloe's eyes widened. She recognized him. He was one of the top agents from Aegis Security, a private firm that catered exclusively to the world's ultra-elite. The discreet pin on his lapel signified he answered to only one client. The agent call sign was the Courier. He walked up to the front door, gave me a short, respectful bow, and held out the briefcase. Mr. Miller, the special harvest of Silverdew tea you requested. Flown indirectly. Chloe stared, dumbfounded, as this legendary operative, a man who supposedly never showed his face, acted like a delivery boy, handing me a box of tea. She turned back to me, her expression a chaotic storm of shock, confusion, and a reality-shattering disbelief. She pointed at me, her lips trembling, unable to form a single word. I knew in that instant that the entire script she had written for me, the poor, ambitious boy from the sticks, had just been completely and utterly incinerated. The man she knew as the Courier, whose real name was Leo, was a guy I trained myself years ago. Sending him on a tea run was ridiculous overkill, but I knew his appearance was the only way to silence certain lingering questions. He set down the case and glanced at Chloe without a hint of recognition, as if she were a piece of furniture. Sir, any further instructions? No. Head back. Safe flight, I said with a wave, dismissing him like any other employee. Yes, sir. Leo turned, boarded the helicopter, and the door slid shut. With another deafening roar, it lifted into the air and vanished into the darkness. The entire village fell into an eerie silence. Even the dogs had stopped barking. I picked up the silver case and typed in a code. It popped open. Inside wasn't gold or jewels, just a small, porcelain canister of tea leaves. I took it out, set it on the coffee table, and turned to Chloe, who was still frozen in place. Want to try some? It's this year's first harvest. Chloe didn't move. She was like a statue, but I could see a hurricane raging behind her eyes. She stared at me, trying to peel back every layer and see what was underneath. Was that the Courier? She finally managed to say, her voice raw and dry. Yeah, I said, filling the electric kettle. The Courier from Aegis Security. The one who supposedly works exclusively for Nyx? She asked, each word precise and sharp. I rinsed 2 teacups, not looking at her. It's a big world. People have the same names, same call signs. It happens. Ethan. Her voice shot up, then immediately dropped to a strangled, trembling whisper. Stop it. Just stop. Who are you? I placed a clean cup in front of her and finally met her gaze. Chloe, I'm Ethan Miller. I always have been. You. She looked at my calm face and suddenly deflated, slumping onto the couch. She buried her face in her hands, her long hair falling around her, hiding her expression. I saw her shoulders shaking slightly. I didn't say anything. I just brewed the tea. The hot water hit the leaves, and they slowly unfurled, releasing a delicate, fragrant steam. I knew she needed time to process it all. The poor kid she thought she was dating, the nuisance her mother thought she could pay off with $5 million. The ex-boyfriend she was lecturing for his lack of ambition was actually Nyx, the myth, the ghost in the machine of global finance, the man whose face no one had ever seen. The whiplash was enough to shatter every belief she had built her life on. After a long time, she looked up. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't been crying. So this whole time, You were acting? Her voice was quiet, but it cut like a razor. No, I said, sliding the cup of tea toward her. When I was with you, I was just Ethan, a regular guy who wanted to build a life with you. It was you who wanted me to be Nix, or at least you wanted me to be someone worthy of a Davenport. I tried, but it wasn't me. So you just gave up? You took the money like a coward and ran away without a word, she challenged. I didn't run away, I said, holding her gaze. I retired. I was tired, Chloe. I'm done with that game of money and power. Your mother's $5 million was the perfect excuse. I took it, so she thinks she won, that she protected her daughter's perfect life. I left, and I got the peace I wanted. It was a win-win. Win-win. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. And where do I fit into this win-win scenario? What am I? I was silent. What was she? The fool who'd been kept in the dark. The victim, played by both her mother and her boyfriend. Your tea is getting cold, was all I could say. She didn't touch it. She stayed the night in the guest room. I could hear her pacing softly all night long. I didn't sleep either. I sat on the porch, watching the moon. I thought coming back here meant leaving the past behind. Apparently, it wasn't that simple. When I got up the next morning, Chloe was already in the living room. She had changed out of her power suit and was wearing a spare t-shirt and sweatpants I kept in the guest room closet. They were a generic brand, but even in them, she couldn't hide her innate elegance. There were faint circles under her eyes, but her gaze was sharp again. The CEO was back. I did some research, she said, her voice steady. Stellaron Labs, DeepNet Capital, and about a dozen other startups in AI and biotech. They're all backed by the same anonymous holding company. That's you, isn't it? I nodded. Yes. There was no point in hiding it anymore. She took a deep breath, as if steeling herself. So, last month, when my company was about to go under, the Knicks who saved our asses for a $1 licensing fee. That was me too. I finished for her. The air grew thick again. If the helicopter was a sledgehammer, this was a tectonic shift, grinding her entire world to dust and reassembling it into something unrecognizable. She looked at me, her eyes a kaleidoscope of shock, anger, hurt, and self-mockery. It all finally settled into a deep, profound exhaustion. Why, she asked. Why would you do all that? Was it fun for you, watching me parade around like an idiot, bragging about my company's successes to the man who was secretly propping it all up? I never thought it was fun, I said. Chloe, I just wanted to know one thing. If you stripped away the Knicks persona, took away all the money, would you still love a guy named Ethan Miller? And did you get your answer? She shot back, her voice laced with pain. I didn't respond. But yes, I had. She had loved me. But that love hadn't been strong enough to stand up to $5 million from her mother, or the invisible wall in her own mind labeled social standing. I have to go, she said, standing up. There's a lot to do at the office. I'll walk you out. Don't, she said, her tone sharp. She walked to the door, then paused without turning around. Ethan, my mother, she doesn't know who you are. I want you to make sure she never finds out. I'm not that petty, I said. She left. The red Porsche once again sliced through the village's peace before disappearing around a bend in the mountain road. Grandma came back from her friend's house and saw the empty living room. Where's Chloe? She left without breakfast. She had an emergency at work, I said with a small smile. That girl, Grandma sighed, shaking her head. She tries too hard. She looks like she has it all, but I bet she's more tired than any of us. Ethan, you need to be good to her. I just nodded. I thought that would be the end of it. Chloe and I were like two lines that had crossed and were now heading in opposite directions. But 3 days later, an unexpected phone call tangled our lives together again. It was Chloe's assistant, her voice choked with panic. Mr. Miller, it's terrible. They took Chloe. My blood ran cold. What do you mean took her? Explain. It was the FBI, the Corporate Crimes Division. They're saying the company is being investigated for industrial espionage and anti-competitive practices. They took Chloe in for questioning as the CEO. My mind went into overdrive. Espionage from who? Orion Corp. The ones who tried to acquire us last year, the assistant sobbed. They're claiming that our new technology, the core algorithm, is identical to a top-secret project of theirs. I understood instantly. It was a setup, a trap designed to crush Ethelred Dynamics, aimed squarely at Chloe. And the core algorithm they were talking about was the one I wrote. Orion Corp was controlled by the Carrington family. Bryce Carrington had been trying to get a date with Chloe for years and had been rejected every time. The failed acquisition attempt had been his idea. After I'd foiled his plan, he must have held a grudge and resorted to this. They must have paid someone off inside Ethelred to get a copy of my code, then filed a patent and cried foul. If those charges stuck, the consequences would be catastrophic. Okay, I understand. Keep the company calm. Business as usual. If anyone asks, Chloe is traveling on business, I commanded, my voice steady. But what about the FBI? I'll handle it. I hung up and immediately dialed another number. Leo, it's me. Sir, I need you to dig up everything on Orion Corp's recent activities, especially anything related to Ethelred Dynamics. And I want the last 3 months of phone records and financial transactions for Bryce Carrington and his chief technology officer. On my desk in 30 minutes. Yes, sir. After the call, I changed my clothes, getting ready to leave. Grandma saw the look on my face. Ethan, is something wrong? It's nothing, Grandma, I said, forcing a smile. A friend's company is in a bit of trouble. I have to go to the city, but I'll be back soon. Is it that Chloe girl? She asked, her eyes sharp. I didn't deny it. She took my hand and tried to stuff a debit card into my pocket. Grandma has some savings. You take it. If it's not enough, we can sell the house. The most important thing is that she's okay. A lump formed in my throat. I gently pushed the card back. Grandma, I have money. Don't worry. I didn't call the helicopter. It would draw too much attention. I took the most inconspicuous car I owned, a generic electric sedan, and sped toward the city I had just escaped. On the way, Leo's report hit my inbox. He was fast. The email laid out the entire conspiracy in detail. How Bryce Carrington had bribed a mid-level tech manager at Ethelred to get a copy of the algorithm, how they had rushed to file a patent, and how they had orchestrated the entire frame-up. The evidence was all there: bank transfers, encrypted emails, even an audio recording of the two of them plotting in a coffee shop. My expression grew colder as I read. Bryce Carrington had messed with the wrong person. I didn't go to the FBI. I went to a place called The Summit, the most exclusive private club in the city. I owned it. I went straight to my penthouse suite on the top floor. Leo was waiting for me. Next to him stood a mild-mannered, middle-aged man in a sharp suit and gold-rimmed glasses. Sir, Mr. Davies, I said with a nod. Davies was the top corporate litigation lawyer in the country, the head of my personal legal team. I forwarded him the file from my phone. Here's the situation. I want 3 things. First, Chloe Davenport walks out of federal custody, completely cleared by the end of the day. Second, Orion Corp and Bryce Carrington pay the highest possible price for this. And third, my name, or the name Nix, is to be kept out of it entirely. Davies adjusted his glasses, his eyes scanning the evidence. A cold smile touched his lips. Consider done, sir. This isn't corporate litigation. It's extortion and felony fraud. With this evidence, I won't just get Ms. Davenport released. I'll make sure Bryce Carrington spends the next decade in a federal prison. Good. Get it done. After Davies left, I turned to Leo, the manager who was bribed. Do we have him? He's in the next room, Leo said. He has already provided a full confession. Good. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at the city lights, a stark contrast to the quiet, star-filled sky of Havenwood. Sir, Leo said hesitantly from behind me. Are we certain about this? Deploying these kinds of resources for Ms. Davenport, it could expose some of your other operations. I watched my own reflection in the glass. After a moment, I said, she's different. Leo said nothing more. At 5 p.m., just before sunset, Davies called. It's done, sir. Ms. Davenport has been released. I've had her chauffeured home. Based on our evidence, the FBI has opened a criminal investigation into Bryce Carrington and Orion Corp. I suspect you'll enjoy Orion's stock performance tomorrow morning. Thank you. I hung up, but I didn't feel relieved. I grabbed my car keys, ready to head back home. Sir, aren't you going to see Ms. Davenport? Leo asked. No, I said. It wouldn't be right. What was I to her now? The ex-boyfriend who took a $5 million payoff. Showing up to play the hero would only make things worse. Besides, I didn't want her to think Nix was swooping in to save her. I didn't want her to feel rescued. As I drove out of the city, my phone rang. It was Chloe. I hesitated, then answered. Hello. Thank you. Her voice was low and hoarse with exhaustion. Don't mention it. I know everything. Mr. Davies told me, she said. It was you. It was nothing, I said flatly. A long silence stretched between us. I could hear her soft, unsteady breathing. Ethan, she said suddenly, can you come back? My grip tightened on the steering wheel. I can't, Chloe. Why? Her voice held a vulnerability I had never heard before. Is it because of my mother? I can talk to her. I can fix it. It's not about her. I interrupted. This is my choice. I could give up the company. I could give up everything. Her voice trembled. I could move to Havenwood with you. We could have that quiet life you want. I let out a sad, quiet laugh. Chloe, you wouldn't last a week. You belong here, in this city, with the product launches and the flashing cameras. I belong in Havenwood, with a checkerboard and my grandma's garden. We could try. There's no point. I couldn't do it anymore. Every conversation felt like tearing open a wound. I'm driving. I have to go. I ended the call and shut off my phone. Outside my window, the city lights faded into the distance. The road ahead was dark, just like us, headed in two different directions. I thought that would be the end of it. Bryce Carrington was arrested. Orion Corp's stock plummeted and was devoured by competitors. Ethelred Dynamics was safe. Chloe was still the untouchable CEO. I was still Ethan Miller of Havenwood. Our paths, I assumed, would never cross again. A week later, my retirement was interrupted once more. This time it was Chloe's mother. She arrived not in a flashy limousine, but in a discreet black sedan. She was dressed more conservatively than last time, but the bone-deep arrogance was still there. She stood at my gate, her eyes taking in the house with a complicated mix of appraisal and suspicion. I let her in. Grandma was next door, playing mahjong. She didn't waste time looking around. She got straight to the point. The business with Bryce Carrington. That was you, wasn't it? I poured her a glass of water. I didn't confirm or deny. She let out a cold laugh. Don't play dumb. Chloe told me everything. Nix. Mr. Miller. Very clever. Very manipulative. She spat the name Mr. Miller like an insult. I really underestimated you. I thought you were just some parasite trying to latch onto my daughter. I never imagined you were the dragon, hiding in plain sight. I sat across from her, sipping my tea. Is that all you came here to say? Of course not. She pulled a file from her briefcase and pushed it across the table. I'm here to offer you a partnership. I blinked. A partnership? I picked up the file and opened it. It was a stock transfer agreement. She was offering me her personal 30% stake in Ethelred Dynamics, free and clear. The only condition was that I get back together with Chloe and use my resources to help turn Ethelred into a global powerhouse. I looked at the document and felt a wave of absurdity wash over me. Ma'am, I think you're confused, I said. You're the one who paid me $5 million to leave her. That was then. This is now, she said, without a trace of embarrassment. Her face was that of a pure transactional capitalist. Before, I saw you as a liability to my daughter. Now, I see you as her greatest asset. As such, it is my duty to remove any obstacles between you. Obstacles? Yes, she nodded. The only obstacle was me. And now, I'm giving you my approval. Not only that, I'm giving you my full support. This 30% stake is a gesture of my sincerity. I looked at her and wanted to laugh out loud. In her world, love, marriage, everything was a transaction that could be quantified. Before, my value was negative, so she paid to get rid of me. Now my value was astronomical, so she was trying to buy me back with shares. Never once did she consider what I wanted or what Chloe truly wanted. Ma'am, I said, pushing the file back to her. You're mistaken. Chloe and I are over. Over. Her brow furrowed, as if she couldn't comprehend the word. Why? Because of the $5 million? Young man, don't be so emotional. A little humiliation is nothing in the face of this kind of opportunity. To me, it is, I said, my voice quiet but firm. It wasn't a little humiliation. It was a negation of 3 years of my life, of my feelings. And besides, I'm tired. I have no intention of going back to that life. Tired? She looked at me like I was a joke. You're barely 30 years old and you're tired? Ethan, I know you're brilliant, but don't be arrogant. Without the Ethelred platform, without the Davenport family's connections, even your companies will take decades to mature. This is a merger of titans. It's what's best for you and for Chloe. I don't care what's best, I said. I just want to stay here with my grandma, play checkers, and grow vegetables. My complete lack of ambition finally broke her composure. You are infuriating. What on earth did my daughter ever see in you? Maybe she saw the infuriating part and liked it, I said, standing up and gesturing toward the door. Ma'am, it's getting late. I'll see you out. Her face was white with rage. She snatched the file off the table and shot me a venomous look. You will regret this. Ethan Miller. A man without ambition is just a declawed tiger. No matter how powerful, he's nothing more than a house cat. With that, she stormed out. I watched her go and shook my head. A house cat? Sounded pretty good to me. At least they're free. After she left, the village was quiet for a few days. I thought, finally my life could get back on track. But apparently, no one in the Davenport family played by the rules. One afternoon, I was in the yard trimming the rose bushes when a moving truck pulled up to my gate. I watched, confused, as the back rolled up and movers started unloading equipment. An easel, paint, sculpting tools, and a mountain of suitcases. Finally, Chloe hopped out of the passenger seat. She was dressed in a plain white t-shirt, jeans, and canvas sneakers, her hair in a simple ponytail. With no makeup, she looked like a college student. She saw me, gave a little wave, and a slightly awkward smile. Hey, I was speechless. I looked from the pile of her belongings to her. What is this? I'm moving in, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I terminated the lease on my penthouse. I'm living here now. My brain stalled. Living here? Where? Next door, she said, pointing to the old, abandoned house beside mine. I rented it. We're neighbors now. I couldn't speak. I watched as she directed the movers to haul her life into that dilapidated shack. The place had a leaky roof, drafty walls, and no indoor plumbing. She was a woman who had grown up with every conceivable luxury, and she was going to live there? Chloe, this is insane, I finally said. I'm not being insane, she said, turning to me, her eyes completely serious. You said I couldn't handle this life. I don't believe you. So I'm here to try. Try? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This isn't an immersive experience at some wellness retreat. There's no air conditioning, no central heating, and the mosquitoes are the size of small birds. You won't last a single night. We'll see about that, she said with a wink, then turned back to her work. I stood in my yard and watched her. Watched her move through the dusty old house, getting smudges on her perfect face. Watched her struggle clumsily to set up an easel, getting tangled in its legs. This was a Chloe I had never seen before. Stripped of her CEO armor, without her icy mask, she just looked like a stubborn, slightly awkward girl. I sighed. I couldn't help myself. I walked over, took the easel from her, and set it up in 3 simple movements. She looked up at me, a smudge of dirt on her cheek, and smiled like a kid. Thanks. Don't mention it, neighbor, I said, unable to keep the exasperation out of my voice. That night, lying in my comfortable king-sized bed, I listened to the bangs and clatters from next door, punctuated by the occasional, muffled yelp of a mosquito bite. I didn't get a wink of sleep. I was starting to think I'd retired a little too soon. Chloe's neighbor phase lasted longer than I ever would have guessed. She seemed dead set on putting down roots. She hired a local handyman to patch the roof so it wouldn't leak. She bought a truckload of supplies from the general store and learned how to use a wood-burning stove, though for the first week she was covered in soot. She got up at dawn every day to go for a run through the village. Then she would set up her easel and paint. She painted the old cow in the pasture, the men playing checkers by the store, the women washing clothes in the creek. At first, the locals thought she was a curiosity, but her quiet determination slowly won them over. Old man Hemlock even started sitting up straighter when she painted him, so he'd look more dignified. She rarely bothered me, but her presence was a constant. I'd step outside in the morning and find a small bowl of wild strawberries she'd picked, left on my porch steps. I'd come home from a checkers game to see her sitting just outside my fence, quietly painting the old oak tree in my yard. I'd be watching a movie with Grandma and catch a glimpse of the warm light from her window and the silhouette of her bent over a canvas. We fell into a strange, unspoken truce. I didn't call out her simple life experiment, and she didn't bring up our past. We were just 2 neighbors who nodded and smiled when we saw each other, occasionally exchanging a few words about the weather. Then one day, Grandma pulled me aside. "Ethan," she whispered, "are you and Chloe fighting?" I was taken aback. Look at that poor girl, living all alone in that rundown place, cooking for herself on that old stove. She's lost so much weight. And you, living right next door, you don't even think to look after her, Grandma scolded. "She wants it this way," I argued. "What do you mean she wants it?" "A girl's got her pride. If you don't make the first move, what's she supposed to do?" Grandma fixed me with a stare. "Tonight, you invite her over for dinner." I couldn't argue with Grandma. That evening, Chloe came over. She was dressed simply, but she seemed to carry a new warmth, a groundedness she didn't have when she first arrived. At dinner, Grandma fussed over her, piling her plate high. After we ate, Chloe insisted on helping with the dishes. In the kitchen, over the sound of running water, she spoke, her voice soft. "Ethan, I'm almost out of money." My hands paused in the soapy water. She must have brought some savings with her, but not a lot. Life here is cheap, but not free. "So," I asked. "So I need to find a job," she said. "A job?" "Yeah." She looked at me, a little embarrassed. "I've done a few paintings. I was thinking of trying to sell them in town." Do you think anyone would buy them?" She looked at me with an expression of hope and nervousness. It wasn't the look of a CEO. It was the look of a normal person, uncertain about the future. My heart softened. I dried my hands, took a plate from her, and put it away. "Selling paintings is a slow business," I said. "My organic farm co-op needs someone who understands brand design." "Interested?" She stared at me, stunned. "Me? Could I? You can start by designing a logo. If I like it, you're hired. I'll pay you a salary." I tried to sound as professional as possible. Her eyes lit up, like someone had switched on stars inside them. "Okay, I'll do my best." Watching her, full of a new sense of purpose, I suddenly thought that maybe, just maybe, having her stay wasn't such a bad thing after all. The scenery in Havenwood was definitely improving. The logo Chloe designed for the farm was unexpectedly brilliant. She didn't use any flashy corporate tricks. It was just a few simple, elegant lines that sketched out the hills of Havenwood, the creek, and the roof of a small barn. It was clean, warm, and perfect. With her packaging designs, the farm's sales soared. She became the co-op's official design director. Every day she'd be out and about, a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder, meeting with the farmers about packaging or having video calls with the sales team. The smiles on her face became more frequent and more real. It was the deep, genuine joy of accomplishment, a world away from the polite, manufactured smile she used to wear after closing a 9-figure deal. Our relationship began to change, too. We would argue for half an hour on the phone about the shade of green on a jam label. I'd bring her a bowl of hot soup when I saw her light on late into the night, working on a sketch. She'd hand me a cold bottle of soda after I lost a particularly humiliating game of checkers to Old Man Hemlock, teasing me about my lack of strategy. It felt like we were back where we started, before the money and the expectations. Just two people drawn to each other. That night was the harvest moon. The village was alive with quiet celebration, families sitting out in their yards to watch it rise. The three of us, me, Grandma, and Chloe, sat on the porch. A plate of mooncakes I'd had sent from the city and a bowl of pomegranates from Grandma's garden sat on the table between us. The moonlight was brilliant, coating the yard in a layer of liquid silver. Chloe pointed up at the full moon. "Ethan, do you think there's really a man in the moon?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe." "I think so," she said. "He must be so lonely up there, all by himself." I looked at her. In the moonlight, the line of her jaw was impossibly soft. "He's not alone," I said. "Look at all the stars keeping him company." She turned and looked at me, her eyes shining. We didn't say anything else. We both knew something had shifted. Just then my phone rang. It was a strange international number. I frowned and answered it. A panicked voice, speaking crisp, formal English, came through the line. "Mr. Nix, thank God, I finally reached you. This is the Federal Reserve. We have a massive crisis on our hands. The global financial system is on the verge of collapse, and you are the only one who can." I cut him off. "Sorry, you have the wrong number." I hung up and blocked the number. When I looked up, Chloe and Grandma were staring at me curiously. "Who was that?" Grandma asked. "Some kind of telemarketer?" "Yeah," I said, smiling. "Just a wrong number." I picked up a mooncake and handed it to Chloe. Here, try this. Red bean. Chloe took it and bit into it, her eyes curving into crescents that mirrored the one in the sky. She said. It's sweet. I looked at her smile, at my grandma's peaceful face beside her, at the moon and the endless ocean of stars above. And I finally understood what it meant to be truly wealthy. To hell with the global financial crisis. Tonight, I was right where I needed to be.